I really liked is the amount of functionality here. It seems like the team went above and beyond to really give you everything but the kitchen sink, essentially. However, I'm not too convinced about this whole flow here. This is rather new to me. So in this video, we are going to be looking at another no-code tool called Backendless. And this video is going to be in 3 parts. In the first part, we are gonna take a look at what this tool is about, what do they promise to you, their marketing material, their features, benefits, some of the things that you can do with this tool. In the second part of the video, we're gonna go inside the tool and start playing around with the UI, with the functionality, and even build a very simple app just to give you a quick taste of how the tool works, how the features are implemented, and how you can build an app. And then in the last part of the video, I'm going to give you my own view on this tool. I'm going to tell you things that I liked, things that I didn't like, and who might like this tool in order to go out and build some apps. All right, so let's get started. All right, so here we are on backendless.com, and this is a full stack visual app development platform. They offer you a complete visual app builder that makes apps intuitive to develop and easy to manage, no code required. All right, so this is what they offer to you: user management, authentication, authorization in one central place, real-time database, changes to your data are delivered to your app in real time, API services, develop, deploy, and manage highly scalable API services, UI builder, of course, codeless visual front-end builder with components, blueprints, and more, push notifications, send customizable and targeted push notifications, and then there is something called the Backendless Pro. You can run Backendless on your own servers with no functional limits, so it seems like a self-hosting solution. So if we scroll down, this is a codeless app builder, serverless backend, and API service solutions for your mobile and web app needs. Okay, so this is what they offer, and it seems like they offer a lot. They offer all the things that you need in order to build a very useful app. So if we scroll down, by developers for developers, right? So our APIs are designed and implemented with love and care. Whether you're a brand new builder or seasoned developer, our goal is to make your app building experience as efficient as possible and enjoyable as possible, right? So there's a user service API. So there's all kinds of interesting APIs where it looks like you can even write code if you want, right? So you can write this code in all these languages: .NET, Java, Kotlin, Objective-C, REST. You can even do a REST request, and then there's codeless as well, using this thing, which we're gonna get to in a little bit. So there's all kinds of interesting APIs which are definitely gonna come in useful when you're out building your app, when you're trying to make your app as robust and as useful to clients or customers. So we have a Backendless Cloud, Backendless Pro, Managed Backend. So there's a lot of cool things happening here, but none of that really matters unless you actually want to use this tool, unless you actually find it easy to use and user-friendly. All right, so let's get into this tool. Let's take a look at the UI and let's see if we can build a very simple app without breaking a sweat. So here I am logged in. This is kind of a new app that I opened up, and it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any UI elements, nothing. This is a fresh app. And so let's go over the UI and try to understand if it's really user-friendly or if it needs some work. So the first thing is that we have 3 tabs. We have a backend tab, we have a front-end tab, and we have missions. So if we go into the backend tab, we see all the stuff that's actually happening on the backend. So nothing that the user sees, all the functionality, the databases, the analytics, the logs, the billing, essentially all the stuff you have to do apart from actually building the app. And this is kind of why no-code tools are nice, because you have all this functionality here, right? And they actually let you know, okay, we have analytics, we have API calls, users in this analytics tab, we have log management. So this is very useful, right? Anytime your app does something, you have logging. So you have a debug log level, and then you have war and error. And when you're logging stuff, you can specify the log level. So you want to specify whether this specific log is just debug, which means when you actually deploy the app, all the debug stuff is not going to be compiled. It's not going to be inside the app. Or you may, you have an error, you have a fatal, or you can just turn it off. Then we have billing. I'm using the free plan right now, and so it's enough to kind of get started and to play around with the environment. We have export, import, sync changes, stuff like that. We also have users, user registration, and what's nice about it is that there are a bunch of login providers. So you have all of these login providers, which is great because I personally hate creating new accounts on every single app that I go to. I just want to use my Google account or my Apple account or my, some other account. I don't want to create a bunch of different accounts. I have a special Google account that I use for a lot of these no-code tools, a lot of email correspondence. I just use that account. Makes things super, super easy, and I don't have to remember a million passwords. So when you're developing an app, it's also nice to be able to offer a lot of these third-party authentication providers as well. Your users will thank you for sure. And we have security roles, all these things. Now, I always go into data. I want to see what is the data thing, because this is what we're going to be working with. Let's face it, data is priority. Data is super important. Your user authentication providers, that's nice. That's a nice benefit. But data, that's very, very important. And thankfully, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do. So here I have like a table that I created. Let me go and delete it so we can create a new table together. And so here we have app tables, we have app views, we have system data. And so here you can create a new app table. So let's say I want to create a new app table, customers. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit create. And now I have a new app table. We can switch to schema editing to configure this table schema. I can say yes, and now I can configure the columns and stuff like that. If I don't want to do that right now, I can do that later. But when we create a table, we have various built-in fields. Owner ID, created, updated, stuff like that. Then we have a data browser where you can actually look at the data that you created. So I can hit here new, and I can create a new record with like a built-in object ID, which is nice because that will allow me to create relationships. That will allow me to reference that specific row there, which is very, very helpful. Now, if we edit it, the only thing that's editable is this owner ID, right? Where we can come here and we can create it. We don't have any users set, so we cannot pick a user and link it to that table there. But if we did, then that's how we would link it. We also have schema. We have a visual modeler where you can look. So this is kind of one table. We can create another one, and then we can link them, and that way they're going to be connected, right? So we're going to have another table. We can auto arrange them. We can zoom to fit, and they're going to be connected. This is actually very, very cool. Because if you're creating a more complex app, you're definitely going to have different tables, different relationships. You might have a customer, and that customer might have products. So I can say products, and then this is going to be linked to another table with various products, stuff like that. So there's that. We have permissions, we have a REST console configuration. And so in this specific tutorial, I'm not gonna go super deep into this tool. This is something I may do for another video. So as you're watching this video, if this is a tool that you are perhaps interested in, let me know in the comments below that you wanna see a truly comprehensive tutorial with all the functionality, all the things that you can do, because I wanna see if people are interested. I wanna see if there's demand. So do let me know in the comments below and smash a like on this video. If I see a lot of likes on this specific video, maybe over 50 likes, 100 likes, I'm gonna go out and make a huge video on all the functionality, basic and advanced. All right, so moving right along. So we have a data browser, we have all of these things, and you can also create app views. So you can have tables, you also have views, which is very, very nice. We have counters. These are essentially atomic counters, if I had to guess, that you can create various atomic counters. And we have cache, files, messaging, cloud, code, marketplace, code generation. So that's kind of the backend, right? Now, one thing you have to realize is that you're not going to be using a lot of the functionality. You're just going to be using mostly, you're going to be using the data stuff here. You're going to be using the tables later on. As your app becomes more complex, more comprehensive, you're going to be using a lot of this other functionality. So do not like freak out if you don't know what a counter is, what is an atomized counter and all of that. I will cover that in future videos, but you don't really need that when you're just getting going. All right, now that we covered the backend, let's talk a little bit about the front end, which is arguably where you're going to be spending the most amount of time designing, playing with the design, rearranging the elements, stuff like that. So if you click on the front end, we have the user interface, we have the logic, we have components, we have a theme, and we have settings. Okay, so user interface. If you click on this editing page here, you can create new pages and you can create new containers. I'm not going to be covering containers in this specific video, but I will just briefly talk about the pages. So here we have the landing page, and I can go ahead and I can create a new page, which is something we're going to do in just a minute. So first of all, let's talk about the UI, right? Because this is what you're either going to be comfortable with this UI or you're not going to be comfortable. And the same could be said for logic as well, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So if you click here, you're going to see all the UI elements, right? We have the layout, so I can drag this container here. I can go back, I can drag a row, I can create a new row. I can basically align the elements how I want. And I can also, once I choose an element, I can delete it. I can just press that little, so as you can see, if I pick an element, there's that little garbage can, and if I click on that, it deletes it. So there's that. Now let's say I want to create an input field or something like that. I can simply scroll down. I have an input form, right? So I can just drag it here, and it has a label. Here's where all the properties are for this thing. It has a label. And let's say we're doing some kind of an input, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to find a button, place it right underneath the label here, this input form. And let's say the label is whatever label. We can change that. We can come in here. We can click on settings and we can change it. So like maybe this is your name, enter your name or something like this. Now it's going to display enter your name. Now the button, obviously we can change the button. If we scroll down, we have a label, submit. If I do that, it changes it. Another thing that's very, very useful is data, right? How to show data, and specifically data from a table, right? Like a grid, or in Bubble, that would be like a repeating group. And that's also very, very simple. If you scroll down, you have a data table here. So if you drag that and place that here, you can actually specify where you want the data to be shown here. So you have a table here. And if you click here, you have your table. So remember, we created customers. So if I pick customers, it's automatically going to show all the columns, and we can actually change the columns. So if we scroll down, we can say columns, configure, show object ID. We don't want object ID. We don't want owner ID. We just want created or something like. So I can hit apply and it's there. So right now there's just a couple of rows in that table. There's a couple of entries there. There's not a lot of real data, so it's not going to display anything meaningful. But this is just to show you how simple it is. And that's because that's one of the first things that I try to understand whenever I start looking into a new no-code tool. I want to see how it displays data, because you're going to be working with data. You're going to be displaying data. You're going to be editing data. You're going to be just doing something with data one way or another. So now that we kind of have a brief overview of the UI, there's a lot more to talk about. I want to show you logic. Okay, this is where this tool is going to be very, very different than the previous tools I covered, except maybe one. So let's delete this data table, okay, just right now. And we have the simple input. We have a submit. Now, if I run this app, I go into preview and I have a desktop preview. I run it, it's going to just show us the UI. So this is kind of what the app looks like. We have a page title, we have enter your name, James, and I say submit. Nothing happens. We want something to happen. And for that, we need to include some logic. Now, logic is very interesting in this tool. What you want to do is you want to select an element here, and you want to click this button right here. You can click it either here, or you can click it either here. So if I click this little jigsaw puzzle, we have our logic tab here, our logic interface. And now the first thing I need to do is I need to select an event. So what we want to do is we want to do an on-click event. I'm going to hit this, and now we are here in our logic builder. Now, the way this logic builder works is that you're essentially, it's true UI. You're essentially moving around a bunch of jigsaw pieces. And for instance, we have our first jigsaw piece here. It says on-click event, and inside we have to place something. So for instance, let's say for the purpose of this tutorial, I want to do an alert or something like that. So I can go into a device API. I have a show alert. I drag and drop that, and it matches up correct. Now, not all of the jigsaw pieces are gonna match up. As you can see, this one matches up. There's a little indentation here, and there's a little kind of arrow here, and if we place that, it matches up. Now, if I go in here and I have something like this, and I remove this, this is not gonna match up, because this is an else condition, this is an if condition. This is just a statement. It's not gonna work here. It's gonna work here. It's gonna work somewhere else. So it's important to understand that once you're developing these apps, it's gonna be second nature to you. But this is something that I realized in the beginning, and I wanted you to know that as well. So we're gonna delete this, we're gonna place that here. And so when we click on that button, we wanna show an alert, and we have a message here. So let's say the message, we're gonna scroll down to text, and here is our little message here. We can do raw text, or we can have a quoted text. I'm gonna drag and drop this, and I'm gonna fill this out. Okay, button, I can do something like this, button clicked. And so now we have an event. Once we click on the button, we're showing an alert, and with the message, button click. That's it. Now let's run this app and see if it's working, right? You always want to be testing. You never want to just build an entire app and then realize you messed up somewhere. Always testing constantly. So I'm gonna click, button clicked. So that's working. Now, it's also important to understand that this is not the only event that we can show. We can show as many as we want, potentially. We have a non-click event. We can go to the next page. We can do a lot of interesting things. So let's do something a little bit more complex. Let's go to the user interface. Let's hover over the editing page, and let's create a new page here. I'm going to do a new page. I'm just going to call it page 2. Now, when you're creating a new page, you can create it from a marketplace. You have page templates, you have ratings, all this stuff. We're just going to do a blank page just to keep it simple. It's not the main page. The main page is the page that shows up first. The main page is our landing page, which is the initial page. So I'm going to hit create. And what I want to do is I want this page to display something. I want it to display maybe what we entered in the previous page. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to drag and drop this text right here. And before I can actually display the right thing, I need to go back to our to the previous page here, and I need to set the variable. So if we enter our name, I want this variable to be binded on an app level. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if I go in here and I go to the logic here, I want this value logic to be binded to a property name. The property name could be anything. Essentially, when you type in a property here, you create a new property on the page data model. I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say age value or name value. I think we're asking for a name. That's it. Now, when we go back to our interface here, when we go back to our user interface, this thing is going to be binded to a certain value. So let me explain. If I go in here, if I go to submit, and so now that we bound that variable to a specific property on the page data object, what we want to do is we want to show an alert with that variable. And for that to do that, and in order to do that, we need to go into object, we need to do get property, we need to place it here. The property we're doing is new value, actually name value, and this is the object. The object is page data. Okay, so now if we preview the app, whatever we enter and we press the button, it's gonna display an alert with that value. Okay, so let's say my name is James. I hit submit, it says James here, okay? So that was a very, very simple app just to explain to you how it works. The other thing that we can do is we can create another page. We're gonna go to user interface, and I have a page 2 here. Okay, this is just a blank page. And I can essentially redirect to that page. So I can go back to my initial page, landing page, and I can go to the submit button. I can go to logic. And there's an app router here. And essentially what an app router is, it's a navigation component that allows you to move from one page to another. So you can also go to an external page, you can go to an internal page. That's what you're using your app router for. And so what I can do is I can say go to page here, and the page is gonna be name. What was that page name? Page name is gonna be page 2. And we can even pass data together, okay? So we can even say page data or something like this. And that way we can retrieve that data later on. So right here now, if I preview this app, I say James here, I do submit, we have the alert, I press OK, and we are redirected to the second page that just has a sample text. Now, obviously, everything that I talked about is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to cover. There's a lot more advanced things. There's a lot of system components. a lot of UI library components, a lot of backendless components, which is very, very interesting. And plus, you can create your own component. You can create a custom components. There's themes, there's REST APIs. There's a lot of interesting things. And so if there is enough interest for you guys to have a more comprehensive video to talk about some of the other components, about some of the other functionality, basically cover as much as I can, definitely smash a like on this video and leave a comment below so that I know that there's enough of you that warrants a creation of a video that's going to cover a lot of the comprehensive stuff. And also, if you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them below. Now, let's talk about some of the pros and cons, kind of the first look, my opinion of this app, what I liked and what I didn't like. Well, I want to be honest with you. What I really liked is the amount of functionality here. It seems like the team went above and beyond to really give you everything but the kitchen sink, essentially. You have a lot of these APIs here. You have the users API, you have the data API, you can do anything that you want. You can load table objects, geolocation API, file messaging. There's a lot of these APIs. They don't need to include all of that. Even if they... So if they didn't include a lot of this stuff, you could still do amazing things with this app. But the fact that I included a lot of this kind of, this external APIs, the logging API, counter API, a lot of this amazing stuff means that you can essentially go out and create a really interesting and a very sophisticated app, which is a very, very good. So that's a big bonus. The UI is nice. Another thing that I really liked is the fact that I can click on any element here. I can go to the code, and there's a lot of things. I can bind different properties to a page data model. So essentially, I can bind a certain property and have it on the page data level. That way I can read it, I can write it, I can update it, I can do all kinds of interesting things inside my code. And there's a lot of hooks, right? There's the visibility logic, I can add logic, I can class logic, disable state logic. So it gives you a lot of power. There's a lot of flexibility. However, I'm not too convinced about this whole flow here. This is rather new to me. These Lego pieces here, maybe this is the future. I'm definitely not used to it because I'm more used to the Appgyver, the bubble way of doing things, the workflows, kind of, the different pieces, connecting different pieces as you do on Appgyver. So for me, this is brand, and this is similar how Thunkable does it, right? I reviewed Thunkable in one of my other videos, and this paradigm is extremely similar to how it's done on Thunkable. So if you've seen that video, if you have some experience with Thunkable, this is going to be second nature to you. Overall, I really like this tool. I like the fact that they give you a lot of things that you can play with. They've given you a lot of ways of hooking into the data of all these APIs. And all of this means that you can create a very, very sophisticated app, an app that does a lot for its users, a truly robust app, essentially an app that can do a lot of things thanks to all of these APIs. And as I've said before, if you guys are interested in a more comprehensive video, definitely give this video a fat like, leave a comment below. If I see a lot of likes on this video, I'm gonna give you guys a big tutorial with a lot of this functionality and show you what kind of things that you can build. And so that is all I wanted to show you guys today. Really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions below. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already, and I will see you in a future video.